I'm Sally Beer, and I'm a resident of Bristol, and I'm a mother, and I'm a health writer, a nutritional therapist, and a writer of books on health and longevity.
Okay, so you're in Montpelier, and you've decided to start a petition about 5G. Now, this is actually being applauded by a lot of people. For example, an article in Bristol 24/7 magazine in April talks about this as a smart city technology and says that, isn't it wonderful, really, that Bristol is open, and there's an organisation headed up by Julie Snell to really sell this to the city. They're saying 5G is actually going to be brilliant for Bristol, and we are one of the first cities in the country that's going to be rigged up with this new form of what is effectively a mobile network.
Right, yeah. So Bristol's one of the test beds. I think there's a handful of cities around the UK which are the test beds. So this kind of glossy promises brochure PR for 5G is going on all around the country and all over the world. So it's all about being in the global market now. So there's a perceived kudos to being a city that has 5G or a country that has it. So I read recently that Korea is now claiming to have 5G. Well, I can't remember which of the Koreas, but one of them is claiming to have 5G, but it's not true. But it's just a game of one-upmanship, and it's part of feeling part of the global market and
technology
promises.
Nowadays. I mean, it's almost as if you've got to keep up with the Joneses, and if you don't have the latest technology, there's something wrong with you.
Yes, it seems as if there is a big element of that, and I personally think that that's as much a belief system as actuality, and I've read interesting studies and experts talking about how they doubt very much that the economic benefits are going to be the way people think they are.
So as a health writer, give us an example of some of the other health subjects that you've covered.
Well, I've studied long-lived societies in sort of isolated pockets in the world where people have extraordinarily low cancer and chronic disease rates, and I've looked at their diet and their lifestyle and what they do. And as a nutritional therapist, I've looked in detail at the way what we eat and our nutrients affect our biochemistry. So I'm not a physicist or a biochemist. The information I have about 5G is what I've found from groups of scientists, coalitions of scientists and biochemists and doctors and public health experts there are hundreds of them who are warning against the use of 5G and calling it not only a highly risky experiment that could cause grave health effects,
but I mean, people
also
are always,
a crime.
Sorry, Sally, but people are always a little bit like this, aren't they? Being rather like Luddites. People don't ever want the latest technology. They're always saying, actually, no, we don't need this. There
are Luddites and people who are anti-technology, and I think with good reason, because for some people the benefits of technology are greater than they are for other people. If someone can show us a provable list of the benefits of 5G, we should all sit down and have a think about that. Will it help in terms of getting people to hospital more quickly? Are robotic factories going to help the human race? But it's really important to weigh the benefits against the costs. So with things like 3G and 4G and Wi-Fi, I mean, I use those myself. I think we all benefit a lot from using those. It keeps us in touch with each other. It helps in the workplace in many ways. Not many people are going to deny the benefits of those. But as soon as the costs outweigh the benefits, and as soon as you start to think, is it possible that this latest technology is not actually about progress? That's a PR and a glossy brochure promise. How much is this really about progress? I don't know if the answer to that in terms of 5G is that the benefits are going to be that great. At the moment, we are supposed to be saving the planet and doing something about climate change. That is one, apart from the health aspects on the human body, the fact that 5G could be highly detrimental to the environment, according to many scientists, that in itself should be enough to stop people in their tracks when they're talking about the progress and the benefits that 5G will bring.
I mean, surely, the companies behind this wouldn't be able to roll this out if it wasn't safe.
Of course they would, because the governments are all for it because of the perceived economic benefits. And whether those play out in the end or not, we don't know. But we know that politicians are capable of making mistakes. So just because our governments say that something is going to work out for everybody, as we know, isn't necessarily the case. For example, Brexit. So A, that, B, look at the leaders around the world at the moment. How interested are they in saving the planet and benefiting the human population as a whole? Look at the different, corporations versus social equality. I think we can safely say that the governments don't always act in our best interest or have good judgment. And on top of that, the body that advises on non-ionising radiation safety is the ICNIRP. That's an international body. They advise the World Health Organization, and Public Health England gets their advice from them. So if you go to the government and say, I'm worried about the effects of 5G and 4G and 3G and Wi-Fi for that matter, their answer will just be, no, it's fine, because the ICNIRP says it is. But if you read for example, in the International Journal of Oncology, there's an article which I've read which explains that the ICNIRP is an industry-loyal group, and the core members who advise the WHO are one and the same. They're all advising each other. So the core group in the WHO also has members in the ICNIRP, and Public Health England gets their advice from them. So it's a very tough nut to crack.
So the industry are actually saying this is safe themselves rather than any kind of independent regulator. So you've got one of these masts outside your house. How do you recognise one? These new masts? Well,
that's another thing, is I only realised today what that mast was. It suddenly came back to me that about a month ago, the existing mast had been taken down, this brand new mast had been put up with a black box on the top of it, which I think is 5G. So I asked a friend who's also campaigning with me, is that the 5G box that's due to be activated in July? And she said, oh, my goodness, that's just happened outside my house too. We know that the 5G boxes and antennae are going to be every 2 to 10 houses. They have to be really closely spaced. So it doesn't surprise me at all. There's one bang outside my house, beaming 5G into my children's bedrooms 24/7. I wanted to say something else about the ICNIRP. So the industry will say, no, our studies show that Wi-Fi and 3G and 4G are safe. So they've cherry-picked the studies that don't show any danger yet. But first of all, we know that studies are faulty. Secondly, they haven't tested 5G, so that just doesn't apply to 5G, which is
they've tested it in
much
Bristol.
Higher frequency
they've
radiation.
Tested it here in Bristol, apparently.
Well, they're starting, but they're not going to know the health effects yet, are they? Unless people very obviously start dropping dead right, left and centre.
Well, from Smart City Technology, this business, Bristol is Open, Julie Snell, who runs it here in Bristol, she says, well, we know that by the time 5G is ready, it will be proven to be safe.
Well, how can she know that if it's rolled out in July? That's 2 months away. You can't show anything in 2 months. It takes years. If you're a chain smoker, it takes a few decades often for you to get the tumour. But we know there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of studies which show that Wi-Fi, 3G and 4G are harmful. And there's a neuroscientist called Dr. Sarah Starkey. She's actually a Bristol University alumna. She submitted that to Westminster, and it has not been incorporated into the Public Health England guidelines. And I read, really interesting, just recently I read about a researcher his surname is Ley, L-E-I. I can't remember his first name, but I have the link here. He looked at the studies showing that Wi-Fi and electromagnetic radiation is safe. And I think he took 2,000 studies, and I think it was about half and half. Slightly more showed that it was dangerous, possibly cancer-causing. But when he took out the industry-funded studies, it was completely different. I think the numbers were 67% showed that there are harmful effects. That doesn't mean that the studies that don't show harmful effects, that they don't necessarily prove that there aren't harmful effects. It might have just been that they didn't show up in the studies. But the point is that there is enough evidence to show that it may be extremely harmful. And there are several coalitions of hundreds of scientists appealing to the UN and governments and leaders saying this is, without a shadow of a doubt, extremely harmful technology. There's enough of that we citizens should not have this forced upon us so that there is no escape.
So what does it actually do to you, having one of these outside your door?
I don't know. But I've read anecdotal reports from Vienna that people who are living now in the 5G electro-smog are suffering tight bands around the head, tinnitus, vomiting and nausea and dizziness. If that starts happening once 5G is activated, if a lot of anecdotal reports start coming out and people start saying they're suffering those things, they might be told they're imagining it, and maybe they will be imagining it. We don't know, but they can't start doing this until they've proven that it's safe. It's called the precautionary principle, and it should be invoked. You can't use humans on this massive scale as guinea pigs to test a technology which may not even be beneficial.
It may be that people have come across this on a different subject because it came up, didn't it, with the use of the Chinese technology company Huawei. So, in a way, the only real news coverage in the mass media has been which company do we want to be installing these, not is it safe. So it's quite clever in a way that hasn't been introduced. I mean, why do you think that there's been so little criticism in the mass media of this new technology?
I don't know. I don't know if it's because the media is influenced by the government, but we know that that's often the case. So possibly there's something to do with that. I have no idea. Or is it just because Huawei and security is the story? I don't understand why there isn't more being flagged up about health concerns, whether there's something in that or not. I have absolutely no idea.
Well, I can tell you the media is quite close to the electronics. I mean, they use lots of electronics in the media. They seem to be quite close to each other. Right. So I wonder, you've decided to start a petition with some of your friends, Sally. So can you tell us where else we can find the petition and what the petition effectively, what you're trying to achieve with it?
Yeah, so with the petition, we're asking that the precautionary principle is invoked in the city of Bristol, and we're really encouraging other local towns and communities to do the same in their areas. But since the central government's not going to listen to us, we're going for appealing to the councillors and our mayor. So with this petition, we're asking there is a pause in 5G rollout, ideally for 5 years. We think that's the absolute minimum that you should be looking at safety during, not 2 months, as this lady says, while the safety is proven. The safety should be proven before we and our children are subjected to this technology. And at the bottom of the petition, we've put some useful links. And if it's okay, I'll just mention some of them. These are some of the groups of scientists who are gravely concerned about 5G. So first of all, this is how my ears first pricked up about 5G, was because the Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry at Washington State University, Martin Poole, there's a video going around. He has said that 5G is the stupidest idea in the history of the world. So he studied the effect of electromagnetic radiation on body cells, and he's an authority on the subject.
And it's worth saying that the frequencies and the power of 5G is an order of magnitude bigger than the previous types of technology.
Absolutely, yes.
It's actually a lot more powerful. So if it is causing harm, which we know it's possible, and certainly the old types of technology, this will be much more harmful.
Right, exactly. So it's bad enough that we have Wi-Fi 3G and 4G, and we should all be looking at ways to reduce our exposure. But with 5G added to the electrosmog, with, it said, 20,000 satellites beaming 5G down onto the planet, and with 5G every few houses in a city, we will not be able to escape it.
But Sally, what do you say to people who say, well, actually, you're paranoid? Actually, there's nothing wrong with this. We use it all the time, all this kind of technology, and we have no problem with it at all.
I say, how do you know I'm being paranoid? Prove to me that it's safe, and I will be open to changing my mind. I would love it if 5G was safe. I'm having real anxiety over 5G because I feel I can't protect my children. I feel that it's incredibly oppressive, that we are being given no choice over the matter.
So what do you do as a mum?
I don't think I'm being paranoid. I think I'm being rightly anxious. Given,
what do you do as a mum if you're in a situation where you think your kids are going to be harmed by this?
Well, at the moment, I panic because I have no choice. I can't escape what is about to be done unless we get enough people. So we'll say again about the petition in a minute. But, if people pressure can work and we can have enough people putting pressure on our mayor on the council to pause this and to have a little bit of humanity towards the way they're treating us and listen to our concerns, then that would be a fantastic outcome if that could happen. And it has happened in some cities. So there's a pause in Brussels, there's a pause in parts of Geneva, there's a pause in parts of Florence, there's a pause in a city in Greece and another one in Italy, which I've been reading about, where the local councillors are very concerned and they're sympathetic. And interestingly, someone in the campaign group that I've recently joined together with, she went to her local councillor with the research about 5G, and he was staunchly pro 5G and stood to benefit from it financially himself. And after he saw the research, he has completely changed his mind. And if you look at the bottom of the petition, there are various groups who, I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to the telecoms industry or our politicians over these groups. There's the American group, Physicians for Safe Technology. They state there is convincing emerging scientific evidence causing great concern for the environment with harm to mammals, insects and bacteria. 5G technology will also consume significant amounts of energy, contrary to global climate goals. Then you've got the 5G space appeal, which has got hundreds of scientists involved in it. They're appealing for a halt. They're saying RF radiation has been proven harmful for humans and the environment. The deployment of 5G constitutes an experiment on humanity and the environment that is defined as a crime under international law. Then there's 230 scientists from all over the world. They've stated in the International EMF Scientist Appeal. Numerous recent scientific publications have shown that EMF affects living organisms at levels well below most international and national guidelines. There are several of these groups, and there are a ton of studies. So I don't think that that's paranoia. I think that's looking at the existing evidence and being a bit sceptical about the real reasons why 5G is being rolled out. It's not just about progress; it's about huge economic benefits for a small group of people.
How do people find your petition?
If you Google on your internet device, 38 degrees, pause the Bristol 5G rollout. I can't remember the exact wording, but you'll find it that way. Pause the rollout of 5G in Bristol. Something along those lines. And we've got almost 2,000 signatures now. So if we can, we'll have 2,000 by the time your show goes out. But we're going for 3,500 from local people because that will have some clout.
Okay. Montpelier-based health journalist Sally Beer, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tony.
You're listening to dialectradio.co.uk, your local community radio run by volunteers. Log on to our website at dialectradio.co.uk to find out more.